I want you to picture a scenario. It's a very specific feeling, and I am, like, highly willing to bet you have lived through some version of it.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, you probably do. So you get that first real paycheck, or, maybe it's a bonus or just a particularly good payday. You open your banking app on a Friday afternoon, the screen loads, and there it is.
Best feeling in the world.
It really is. The balance is higher than it's been in a long time. For a brief, shining moment, you feel rich. You think, like, I have finally arrived.
Right.
There's this massive rush of pure dopamine. You just feel powerful.
It is the ultimate Friday feeling, Your brain is immediately projecting all the possibilities of what that number represents.
Yeah.
It isn't just money. It's status, it's relief, it's freedom.
Exactly that, freedom. So let's follow the trajectory of a woman named Maya. She's a perfect case study for this exact moment.
Okay, let's hear about Mia.
So Maya gets paid. She feels that incredible high. A few hours later, she sits down and she pays her rent. Completely responsible, right? Fair enough.
Totally responsible. Good for her.
But then she decides she deserves to celebrate. So she orders some really nice takeout.
Yeah.
And while she's eating, she's like scrolling on her phone and sees a targeted ad for a pair of shoes she's been eyeing for weeks.
Uh-oh. I see the track opening.
Yep. She buys the shoes. Then she sends a little bit of money back home to her family. Fast forward 48 hours. It's Sunday evening.
The dreaded Sunday evening.
The worst. She checks that banking app again just to see what she has left for the week. The balance is nearly zero. And Maya is left sitting on her couch, staring at her phone with this hollow, physically uncomfortable feeling, wondering where did it all go?
Man, that whiplash from Friday afternoon invincibility to Sunday night panic, that is one of the most universal modern experiences.
It's so painful.
It is. And what we are looking at there is the exact point where the desperate need for financial literacy actually begins. Like, it doesn't begin with a sudden desire to trade stocks or read the Wall Street Journal.
Right. It starts with the pain.
Exactly. It begins with the pain of wondering why your hard work isn't translating into any actual security.
And that pain is really the gateway to our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We are pulling from an incredibly comprehensive stack of foundational research, behavioral psychology, and macroeconomic analysis.
It's a lot of material, but it's so good.
It is. And our mission here is to shortcut your journey to becoming truly well-informed about money. But we are not going to just, read off spreadsheets or throw complex jargon at you.
No, nobody wants that.
Right. The ultimate goal here is to learn how to step into the role of CEO for the most important small business in the world, Your Name, Inc.
I love that framing so much. Treating your household like a business completely changes the paradigm.
It really does.
Because if you are the CEO of Your Name, Inc., your mandate isn't just to generate revenue. Generating revenue is just, having a job.
Yeah.
The mandate of a CEO is to manage cash flow, invest in future growth, and protect the company from external risks. Financial literacy is simply the operational manual for that exact business.
It's the playbook.
Right. It transforms money from a source of constant, low-level background anxiety into a mechanical tool for engineering your own freedom. People constantly confuse income with wealth, but they are entirely different concepts.
Wait, break that down for me. Because most people think high income equals wealthy.
Yeah, that's a huge misconception. Wealth is not what you earn. Wealth is what you keep and what you strategically grow. You can generate $1 million a year in revenue for Your Name, Inc., but if your operating expenses are $1,001,001,
your business is bankrupt.
Exactly, you're broke. Meanwhile, someone earning $50,000 a year could be quietly building a fortress because their expenses are low and they invest the rest.
That distinction between income and wealth is where everything has to start.
Bro.
But before we even touch a calculator, before we look at stock markets or interest rates, we really have to pop the hood and look at the human brain.
Oh, this is the most important part.
Right. Because if the math is so simple, spend less than you earn, invest the difference. Why do incredibly intelligent, capable people make completely illogical choices with their money?
It's a great question.
The research in our sources makes this staggering claim. It says financial success is roughly 80% behavior and only 20% head knowledge.
And that is absolutely true. We have to understand that before you or I ever earned a single paycheck, We already had a fully formed relationship with money.
Yeah, we didn't just start from a blank slate at our first job.
Not at all. It starts when you are like 5, 6, 7 years old. The foundational research refers to these as invisible scripts.
Invisible scripts, I like that.
Yeah. These are the unwritten rules and deeply ingrained beliefs about money that we absorb passively from our environment. We pick them up through childhood experiences, the hush arguments our parents had at the dinner table, the way our culture treats debt.
Let's make that concrete for the listener.
Yeah.
So if you grew up in a household where your parents constantly sighed and said, money doesn't grow on trees, or we just can't afford that,
Right. Very common.
you don't just learn a fact about your family's budget. You develop a deep-seated neurological script that money is inherently scarce and difficult to acquire.
Exactly.
So as an adult, you might operate from a place of constant panic, hoarding cash,
Yeah.
and refusing to invest because you are terrified it will vanish.
Or, take the exact opposite. If your family only ever showed affection or celebrated milestones by buying expensive gifts and going on lavish vacations.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, you literally wire your neural pathways to link the act of spending directly with the feeling of love and happiness. And those invisible scripts guide almost every financial decision you make.
You think you're being logical.
You think you were looking at the math, but you aren't. You are executing an emotional script. Let's look at a classic example of this in action from the data. Take a brother and sister, Daniel and Ruth. They both inherit $10,000 from their grandfather. Same amount of money, same exact opportunity, same family background, but they have developed two entirely different invisible scripts.
Let's hear Daniel's.
So Daniel is an engineer. He is naturally cautious, and his script is that money is a shield against disaster. He immediately takes his $10,000 and locks it away in a low-yield, highly restricted savings account.
Just burying it in the sand.
Pretty much. His rationale is, I am going to wait until I know the perfect, absolutely risk-free thing to do with this.
Meanwhile, his sister Ruth operates on a completely different frequency. Ruth is a social media consultant. Her invisible script is that money is a tool for immediate self-actualization.
Oh, boy.
Right. So she takes her $10,000, immediately books a month-long trip to Bali, and buys thousands of dollars worth of high-end photography gear.
Of course she does.
And her rationale is, I am investing in my personal brand. I can make memories and make money at the same time.
Now, let's evaluate the outcome a year later. Daniel's account earned a very modest amount of interest, barely keeping up with inflation. He was safe, but he didn't leverage the capital to actually improve his life or generate real wealth.
He let fear paralyze him.
He did. Ruth, on the other hand, had a life-changing trip and made great memories, but she didn't generate any new income from the gear, and she actually put her daily living expenses on a credit card while traveling. Her debt doubled.
Wow. So if we are looking at this objectively, neither of them won. Daniel acted purely on avoidance and fear. Ruth acted purely on impulse and excitement.
Yep.
Both of them thought they were making a strategic decision, but they were actually just acting out their invisible scripts.
This is where behavioral science becomes the most important tool in your financial toolkit. Economists used to build all their predictive models on the assumption that humans are rational actors.
Which means what exactly?
Meaning, if given all the information, a human will always calculate and act in their own best financial interest. But psychologists like Daniel Kahneman and Richard Thaler won Nobel Prizes for proving that this assumption is completely hilariously false.
We're definitely not rational calculators.
No, we are predictably irrational. Our brains are literally littered with cognitive biases that trip us up.
Predictably irrational. That is such a powerful lens. We aren't randomly making mistakes.
Yeah.
We are making the exact same mistakes over and over because of how our brains are wired.
Exactly.
Take loss aversion, for example. Evolutionary biology dictated that losing a day's worth of food could mean death, whereas finding an extra day's worth of food just meant a full
Our
belly.
survival instincts.
So the pain of losing is biologically wired to be far more intense than the joy of gaining. In modern finance, this means losing $100 in the stock market physically hurts us more than gaining $100 feels good.
That is so true.
That is why people panic during a temporary market dip and sell all their investments at a massive loss. They're just trying to stop the psychological pain.
Then you have overconfidence bias, which is the illusion that we possess superior knowledge. It's the guy who thinks he can day trade and beat the Wall Street algorithms, even though statistically, virtually no one beats the market consistently over a decade.
Oh, we all know that guy.
We do. But the bias that is perhaps most weaponized against us is anchoring. This is the cornerstone of retail pricing. Your brain relies heavily on the very first piece of information it receives.
Okay, give me an example.
So, if you walk into a store and see a laptop with a price tag of 90,000 rupees, but it has a bright red slash through it and says on sale for 65,000, your brain immediately anchors to the 90.
Ah, I see.
You feel an intense rush of winning. You feel like you are saving 25,000 rupees, even if the actual manufacturing value of that computer is only 40,000.
Mm.
You didn't save 25,000. You spent 65,000. But the anchor manipulated your perception of value.
I see that everywhere now. It's why subscription services show you the monthly cost of an annual plan to anchor you to a low number, even though they charge you the full amount up front.
Yes, it's so deceptive.
But I want to bring up the bias that feels most toxic right now, which is social comparison. Historically, we only compared ourselves to our immediate neighbors. If your neighbor got a new horse, you wanted a new horse.
Right, keeping up with the Joneses.
But today, our neighborhood is the entire globe via Instagram and TikTok. We don't measure our wealth in absolute objective numbers. We measure it by looking at an influencer's vacation in Dubai or a friend's new luxury car.
Which perfectly feeds into present bias. We systematically overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue long-term consequences. Why wait 20 years to have a secure retirement when you can buy the luxury car today and get immediate social validation?
It's just too tempting for people.
It is. A prominent psychologist in this field, Brad Klontz, categorized all these behaviors into 4 core money scripts.
Oh, this is fascinating. Let's list those.
Sure. There is money avoidance, the belief that money is inherently corrupt or bad, which leads people to subconsciously self-sabotage their careers because they don't want to be seen as greedy.
Interesting.
Then there is money worship, the deeply flawed belief that reaching a certain magical number in your bank account will instantly solve all your emotional problems. That one leads to chronic overworking and burnout.
Then there is money status, where you link your internal self-worth directly to your external net worth. If you don't have the designer clothes, you feel fundamentally inadequate as a human being.
That one is rampant right now.
It really is. And finally, money vigilance. This is Daniel from our earlier story. You are so terrified of losing everything that you hoard cash, oversave, and never actually permit yourself to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You live in poverty so that you can die rich.
All 4 of those scripts lead to highly destructive financial behaviors.
But hold on, let me push back on this framework for a second. We talk about all these biases and limiting beliefs. A very common one I hear is people throwing their hands up and saying, look, I'm just bad with money.
Oh, I hear that every single day.
Right. Now, the research frames this as a negative limiting belief. But isn't self-awareness a good thing? Isn't admitting I'm just bad with money a necessary first step, like admitting you have a problem so you can actually start looking for help?
I see why you would think that, but from a psychological standpoint, saying I'm bad with money rarely functions as an admission of a problem that the person actively intends to solve.
It doesn't.
No. Usually it functions as what psychologists call learned helplessness. It stops being a description of a behavior and becomes a permanent identity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you say, I made a bad financial decision, you can correct the decision. But if you say, I'm bad with money, it gives your brain a subconscious permission slip to avoid doing the hard work of learning.
Because it's just who you are.
Exactly. You think, well, I can't help it. It's just who I am. There's no point in trying to budget. It's an abdication of responsibility.
Ah. So it is an excuse masquerading as vulnerability. It sounds incredibly self-aware, but it's actually a defense mechanism to avoid opening a spreadsheet.
Exactly. And to understand why we desperately want to avoid that spreadsheet, we have to look at the 2 systems of thinking that Kahneman identified, System 1 and System 2.
Let's break those down.
System 1 is your ancient, emotional, fast, intuitive brain. It operates automatically. It responds instantly to fear, to excitement, to a bright red sale sticker. It requires 0 calories or effort to use.
And System 2.
System 2 is your modern, rational, slow, deliberate brain. It is the part of you that calculates compound interest, weighs long-term trade-offs, and creates 10-year plans. But System 2 is lazy. It requires immense cognitive energy to turn on.
And here is the terrifying part of that reality. The entire architecture of the modern commercial world is explicitly designed to target System 1 and keep System 2 asleep.
Yes, absolutely. Marketers study behavioral psychology just as intensely as hedge fund managers study balance sheets.
That's a scary thought.
It should be. Every notification on your phone, every frictionless one-click checkout button, every limited time offer countdown clock is engineered to bypass your slow, rational brain. They want to trigger a hit of dopamine so that you feel rather than think.
Wow.
Financial literacy, therefore, isn't just about knowing how to do the math. Financial literacy is your active daily counter strategy. It is the intentional friction you build into your life to force a pause. You are buying time for System 2 to boot up and say, wait, do we actually need this, or are we just stressed?
That is a profound takeaway for you listening right now. Take a moment to reflect on your own invisible scripts. What was the underlying narrative about money at your dinner table growing up? Was it fear? Was it status?
It's so important to ask yourself those questions.
Because money ultimately doesn't change you. It reveals you. It acts as an amplifier. If you are deeply insecure, acquiring wealth will just give you the resources to broadcast that insecurity on a larger scale.
Right.
But if you are naturally generous, wealth gives you the leverage to be a philanthropist.
Yeah.
You'd have to figure out what is running in your subconscious before you can fix your bank account.
But once you have done that microscopic work, once you understand your internal psychology and the biases trying to trip you up, you have to zoom out. Internal discipline isn't enough on its own.
Why not?
Because you have to understand the external environment you are operating in. You can build the strongest, most disciplined ship in the world, but if you don't understand how the tides and the wind work, you are going to crash into the rocks.
That external tide is the macroeconomy. And this is where we zoom out to the big picture. Let's look at the story of Arya from the source material.
Okay, all right.
So Arya is fresh out of college, she lands her first job, and she builds a meticulous budget. She allocates exactly $50 a week for her groceries. For the first few months, it works perfectly.
Good for her.
But then she goes to the store, buys the exact same items, the same brand of cereal, the same eggs, the same milk, and the bill is $60. A few months later, her landlord sends a notice that her rent is increasing by 10%.
And let me guess, her paycheck stayed the same.
Exactly. Her paycheck hasn't changed by a single cent. Arya has a moment of total panic. She looks at her spreadsheet and thinks, what did I do wrong? I am failing at budgeting.
But she isn't failing at budgeting. What Arya is experiencing is the silent force of the macroeconomy acting upon her personal life.
It's invisible to her.
Totally invisible. Trying to manage personal finance without understanding the broader economy is like trying to play a board game where the fundamental rules are being rewritten every 3 turns, but no one is telling you.
That sounds infuriating.
It is. Your income, the interest on your debt, the returns on your investments, they are all tethered to 3 massive macroeconomic forces: GDP, inflation, and employment.
Those 3 terms sound like they belong in a dry university lecture, but they literally dictate what you can afford to put on your dinner table. Let's break them down, starting with GDP, or gross domestic product.
Yeah, let's simplify that.
The simplest way to understand this is to imagine the entire country as one giant corporation. GDP is simply the total value of all the goods and services that company produced and sold in a year. It is the pulse of economic growth.
Right.
If GDP is growing at 3 or 4%, businesses are expanding, they are hiring more people, and consumers are spending money. If GDP shrinks for 2 consecutive quarters, that is the technical definition of a recession. Companies panic, they slash budgets, people lose jobs, and spending freezes.
But we have to be very careful here because GDP is an aggregate number, and aggregate numbers lie.
What do you mean they lie?
Well, you can have a rising national GDP, which looks fantastic on the evening news, but it does not mean everyone in the country is winning. The data highlights a scenario with 2 neighbors to illustrate this.
Let's hear it.
Imagine Alex and Jordan. Alex runs a highly specialized software firm. The tech sector is booming, his business is scaling rapidly, and he's pulling in record profits. Alex is personally driving the local GDP up.
Okay, Alex is doing great.
But right next door is Jordan. Jordan works in manufacturing, and his specific plant just got outsourced due to global trade shifts. He lost his job and is facing foreclosure on his home.
So the politician goes on television and says, the economy is booming, GDP is up. But for Jordan, the economy is in a depression. His personal financial health is entirely decoupled from the national average.
Exactly. Economic growth does not distribute itself equally. It clusters. This is why personal financial literacy is actually most crucial during economic expansions.
That's counterintuitive.
It is, because human nature is to relax when times are good. But you have to build your financial fortress while the sun is shining, because the seasons will inevitably shift. The system is cyclical.
And the force that alters that system most insidiously is our second indicator, inflation. If GDP is the pulse, inflation is the silent thief. This is the concept that is currently devastating Arya's budget.
The worst thief of all.
Seriously. Inflation is the gradual fall in the purchasing power of your money over time. Arya complains to her grandmother about the $60 groceries, and her grandmother laughs and says, "When I was your age, a loaf of bread cost 25 cents and a movie ticket was $1."
We've all heard that from our grandparents.
Right. And Arya rolls her eyes, thinking it's just a funny historical anecdote. What she doesn't realize is that 40 years from now, her own grandchildren are going to look at her in disbelief when she tells them a gallon of gas used to only cost $3.
The math of inflation is brutal because, like interest, it compounds. A healthy economy actually aims for a low, steady inflation rate of around 2%.
Why do they want any inflation at all?
Central banks engineer this intentionally because if prices are slowly going up, you are incentivized to spend or invest your money today, rather than hoarding it under a mattress where it will be worth less tomorrow. That spending drives the GDP. But let's look at the impact on the individual. If inflation runs at a very normal 3% a year, $100 in your bank account today will only have the purchasing power of $97 next year.
Just sitting there doing nothing at lost value.
Fast forward a decade, and you have lost nearly a third of your purchasing power. The number on your bank screen is still 100, but it can only buy $70 worth of goods.
You know, I was trying to conceptualize this, and I think the best analogy is a moving walkway at an airport. You know those long conveyor belts you stand on?
Oh yeah, the ones that speed you up.
Right. Imagine you are trying to walk toward a destination called financial independence. But the walkway you are on is moving in the exact opposite direction. That backward movement is inflation.
Oh, that's brilliant.
If you take your money and hide it in a coffee can, or put it in a basic checking account earning 0% interest, you are essentially just standing completely still on that moving walkway.
And you're just drifting backward.
Exactly. You might feel like you are playing it safe. You haven't lost any physical dollar bills. But because the floor beneath you is constantly pulling you backward, your actual proximity to financial independence is getting further and further away. You are actively losing ground.
That is a phenomenal visual. If you are standing still in cash, you are moving backward. And this completely shatters one of the most common invisible scripts people hold.
Which one?
A lot of people believe that investing in the stock market or real estate is an act of greed. They think, I don't need to be a millionaire. I'm happy with what I have, so I don't need to invest.
I've heard so many people say that.
But investing is not about greed. Investing is purely about defense. It is the act of walking forward on that moving walkway faster than it can push you backward. If inflation is pulling you back at 3%, you must own assets that grow at 5, 7, or 10% just to maintain your current standard of living.
Just to break even.
Exactly. If you don't invest, you are mathematically guaranteeing that you will slowly go broke.
Which ties us to the third big macroeconomic indicator, employment. Employment is the human engine of the whole system. When people have secure, well-paying jobs, they feel confident.
And when they feel confident, System 1 takes over a bit, right?
Yeah, they spend money at restaurants, buy cars, and renovate homes. That spending becomes the income for other businesses, which allows those businesses to hire more people. It's a virtuous cycle.
But when unemployment spikes, the opposite happens. Fear takes over. People stop spending, businesses lose revenue, they lay off more workers, and you get a downward spiral.
And these three forces, GDP, inflation, and employment, interact continuously to create the four economic seasons: expansion, peak, recession, and recovery.
What separates the financially literate from the illiterate is how they react to those seasons. Let's look back at the 2008 financial crisis or the 2020 pandemic crash.
Let's do it.
Millions of people watched the news, panicked, and let their emotional system one brain seize the wheel. They looked at their retirement accounts, saw a 30% drop, and they sold everything.
Oh, painful.
They cashed out at the absolute bottom of the market. They locked in catastrophic losses because they thought the winter would last forever.
But the financially literate people?
They understood macroeconomic cycles. They knew that a recession is a season, not the end of the world. Instead of panicking, they recognized that assets were suddenly on sale. They kept investing, bought equities at historically low prices, and rode the inevitable recovery back up, doubling or tripling their wealth. Literacy is the anchor that keeps you calm when the rest of the world is losing its mind.
But wait, if the economy is always shifting, And if inflation is this constant gravitational pull dragging our purchasing power backward, then there is one variable that matters more than anything else. And that variable is time.
Time is everything.
Time is the amplifier. Time will either make your money work tirelessly for you, or it will compound the damage against you.
This brings us to the bedrock mathematical principle of finance, the time value of money, or TVM.
Okay, walk me through TVM.
To understand TVM, consider a story from the source material about a teenager named Jason. On Jason's 18th birthday, his grandfather sits him down and offers him a choice.
What's the choice?
He says, "Jason, I have a gift for you. I will give you $1,000 in cash right now. Or if you prefer, I will hold on to it and I will give you $1,500 exactly 5 years from today."
Now, Jason is an 18-year-old kid. He wants to buy a car. He wants to go out with his friends. He laughs and says, "Give me the $1,000 right now. Why on earth would I wait 5 long years just to get a little bit more? I want to enjoy it today."
His grandfather smiles and says, "That is a very smart answer, Jason, provided you actually know how to use the money." And he explains the concept.
Let's hear it.
The time value of money dictates that a dollar in your hand today is intrinsically, mathematically worth more than a dollar promised to you in the future. There are 2 reasons for this. First, as we just discussed, inflation.
Right.
A dollar today buys a full candy bar. In 5 years, due to inflation, that same dollar might only buy half a candy bar. The purchasing power erodes.
And the second reason?
The second, far more powerful reason is earning potential. Money is not static. Money is like a seed. If you take that $1,000 today and invest it in an asset that pays you interest, it will organically grow over those 5 years.
It's working for you.
Exactly. If Jason invests the $1,000 wisely, it could grow to $2,000 in 5 years. If he waits for his grandfather's $1,500, he actually lost money through the opportunity cost of waiting.
Money grows when it is deployed, and it shrinks when it is idle. And the specific mechanism of that explosive growth is compound interest. We need to distinguish between simple interest and compound interest, because the difference is basically the gulf between the middle class and the wealthy.
Oh, it really is.
Simple interest is linear. It means you only ever earn interest on your original principal amount. If you put $1,000 in an account paying 5% simple interest, you earn $50 the first year. The second year, you earn another $50. It's flat. It's a straight line.
Boring.
Right. But compound interest, it is exponential. It is often attributed to Albert Einstein, who supposedly called it the 8th wonder of the world, saying that he who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it.
With compound interest, you earn interest on your original principal, and D, you earn interest on the interest that accumulated in the previous years. Your money starts having babies, and then those babies have babies.
I love that. Babies having babies.
Year 1, you make $50. Your balance is now $1,050. Year 2, you aren't earning 5% on $1,000. You are earning 5% on $1,050. It snowballs. The curve starts flat, but over decades, it goes nearly vertical.
And there is a brilliant mental shortcut to quickly calculate this snowball effect in your head. It's called the Rule of 72.
I use this all the time.
It's so handy. If you want to know exactly how long it will take for an investment to double in value, you simply take the number 72 and divide it by your annual interest rate. So if you're invested in an index fund getting a conservative 6% return, you divide 72 by 6. The answer is 12. Your money will double every 12 years without you doing a single thing.
That's wild.
And if you find an investment yielding 10%, 72 divided by 10 is 7.2. Your money doubles every 7.2 years.
Let's ground this in a real-world scenario because the math of delay is devastating. Let's look at the case study of 2 friends, Ella and Noor.
Okay, Ella and Noor.
They are both 25 years old, and they both decide they need to start thinking about retirement. They both commit to investing $300 a month.
Good for them.
Ella acts immediately. She sets up an automated transfer and invests $300 every month from age 25 to 35. That is 10 years of investing. Out of her own pocket, she has contributed $36,000. But at age 35, life happens.
As it does.
She has a kid, buys a house, and she completely stops investing. She never puts another dime into the account.
Now, look at Noor. Noor wants to live in the moment. She falls victim to present bias. She decides her 20s are for traveling and dining out. She waits until she's 35 to start.
A decade later.
Right. But at 35, she gets incredibly disciplined. She invests $300 every single month from age 35 all the way to her retirement at age 65. That is 30 solid years of investing.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is. She contributes a total of $108,000 out of pocket. She put in 3 times as much effort and 3 times as much money as Ella.
So who has more money at age 65? Assuming they both earned an average 7% annual return, the results are shocking.
Tell me.
Ella, who only invested for 10 years and then entirely stopped, ends up with roughly $450,000.
Just from that 36,000 she put in.
Yep. And Noor, who diligently invested for 30 years, ends up with only $370,000.
Wait, really? Ella won.
Ella won easily. Early beats big. Every single time. Ella gave her initial dollars more time to compound. Noor lost a decade of the snowball rolling, and that lost decade cost her nearly $100,000, despite putting in massive effort later in life.
The cost of delay is exponential. This perfectly sets up the 4 pillars of personal finance that function as the blueprint for your name, Inc.
Let's lay out the pillars.
Pillar 1 is income, that is your engine. Pillar 2 is spending, that is your steering wheel and control. Pillar 3 is saving your safety net, the shock absorbers. And Pillar 4 is investing, making your money work while you sleep.
Noor eventually built a great engine and great control, but she ignored the runway of time.
Exactly. But let me ask you this. If the math of Ella and Noor is undeniably true, if compound interest is a provable mathematical certainty, why do our brains fight so incredibly hard against delaying gratification? Why is it so physically painful to put $300 away for the future when we could buy something fun today?
To answer that, we have to look back at the Stanford marshmallow experiment.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
It's a famous piece of psychological research where scientists put a single marshmallow in front of a child and offered a deal. You can eat this marshmallow right now, but if you can wait alone in this room for 15 minutes without eating it, I will come back and give you a second marshmallow.
That's tough for a kid.
It was torture. They tracked these kids for decades, and the children who possessed the ability to delay gratification ended up with higher SAT scores, lower instances of substance abuse, and significantly better financial outcomes.
But why is it so hard to just wait?
The reason waiting is so agonizingly difficult is, again, evolutionary. For 99% of human history, tomorrow was not guaranteed. If our ancestors found a calorie-dense food source, their brain screamed, "Consume this immediately!" Because if they waited, it would rot, or another tribe would steal it, or a predator would eat them.
We are literally biologically wired to secure the immediate reward.
Yes.
So how do we fight hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary wiring? We can't just white-knuckle it, right?
Right.
Because willpower is a depleting resource.
You don't fight it with willpower, you fight it with systems. You have to radically change your definition of patience. In finance, patience is not passive. Patience is not just sitting in a room staring at a marshmallow.
What is it then?
Patience is actively building a system that allows time to work for you without your daily involvement. You have to make a fundamental psychological shift from the typical mindset, which is, I will pay all my bills, buy what I want, and I will save whatever is left over at the end of the month.
Which is how most people operate.
Yeah, but let's be honest, there is never anything left over. Parkinson's law dictates that expenses will always rise to meet income. Instead, you must adopt the mindset of paying yourself first.
How did that work practically?
The moment your paycheck hits your account, before you pay your landlord, before you buy groceries, a predetermined percentage is automatically routed away to your investments. You remove the marshmallow from the room before your System 1 brain even sees it.
And building that system is the perfect transition into the actual daily mechanics of wealth building. Because to feed that powerful engine of compounding, to actually have money to route away automatically, you need free cash flow.
You have to find that money somewhere.
Right, you have to manufacture a gap between what you earn and what you spend. And that requires converting high-level theories into the daily, granular, sometimes tedious practice of budgeting and mindful spending.
Let's look at 2 individuals, Asha and Priya, who earn the exact same salary, 50,000 rupees a month. Their income engine is identical, but their operational systems are entirely different.
Tell me about Asha.
Asha hates the idea of a budget. She feels it restricts her freedom, she spends intuitively, she pays her rent, and then she just swipes her debit card for whatever she feels like until it's empty, and then she relies on a credit card to bridge the gap to her next payday.
So stressful.
It is. Priya, however, operates like a CEO. She tracks her cash flow, she automates a 10% transfer to her investment account on payday. Fast forward 5 years, and Asha is trapped in a cycle of high-interest debt, constantly stressed. Priya has a growing investment portfolio and zero consumer debt.
The deciding factor was not how much they earned, it was purely how they allocated what they earned.
Absolutely.
The research gives us some highly practical frameworks to achieve what Priya did, because staring at a blank spreadsheet is intimidating. The first and most accessible framework is the 50-30-20 rule.
That's a classic.
It's elegant in its simplicity. You take your after-tax income and you draw hard boundaries. 50% goes strictly to needs. Your rent or mortgage, utilities, basic groceries, minimum debt payments. These are the things required to keep you alive and housed.
Right.
30% goes to wants. Dining out, vacations, streaming subscriptions, new clothes. And the final 20% goes directly to your future. Aggressive savings, investing, and extra debt payoff.
The beauty of 50-30-20 is that it has a built-in psychological release valve. It explicitly gives you permission to spend 30% of your money on pure fun, guilt-free.
Which is huge.
It is, because it prevents the famine mindset that causes so many strict diets and strict budgets to fail. However, if you are in deep debt or need a more aggressive turnaround, you might need to graduate to zero-based budgeting, or ZBB.
Oh, ZBB is intense.
Very.
The formula is income minus planned outgo equals exactly 0. You forecast your income for the upcoming month, and before the month even begins, you assign every single dollar or rupee a specific job.
Every single one.
Every one. If you have a surplus of $200 after paying bills and funding investments, you don't just leave it sitting in your checking account as a nebulous cushion. You actively assign it to a car repair fund or an anniversary dinner fund.
The philosophy there is that money without a defined purpose will inevitably be wasted on impulse purchases. By giving every dollar a job, you force total, deliberate awareness of your cash flow.
What if you're someone who just swipes a card and doesn't feel the pain of spending?
Yeah, that's a real phenomenon. Swiping a card doesn't register in the brain the way handing over physical paper bills does. So if you struggle with that, you can use the envelope system.
Old school.
Very old school, but it works. You physically take cash and divide it into paper envelopes labeled groceries, entertainment, gas. When the entertainment envelope is empty on the 20th of the month, that's it. The boundary is hard and physical. You don't go to the movies until next month.
I think we need to talk about the gig economy, though. Because everything we just discussed assumes a predictable salaried paycheck. I want to highlight the case study of Raj from our sources.
Oh, Raj's strategy is brilliant.
It really is. So Raj is a freelance graphic designer. His income is incredibly volatile. One month, he lands a massive corporate contract and makes 120,000 rupees. The next month, the market is dry, and he only makes 40,000.
How can you use 50-30-20 with that?
Exactly. How can Raj possibly use the 50-30-20 rule, or ZBB, when he literally doesn't know what his income will be on the first of the month?
It's a very common modern problem. Raj solves it by creating an artificial layer of stability. He calculates his average monthly living expenses and his average annual income. He realizes he averages about 80,000 rupees a month over a year.
Okay.
So during his high-earning months, instead of inflating his lifestyle and buying a new laptop or going on trips, he takes the surplus and funds a separate business buffer account. He builds this account until it holds 3 months of average income.
Like a shock absorber.
Exactly. Once that buffer is full, Raj stops paying his bills directly from his freelance checks. Instead, he pays himself a fixed synthetic salary of 70,000 rupees on the first of every month, drawn directly from the buffer.
That is amazing.
When a client pays him a massive check, it goes into the buffer. When a client pays late, it doesn't matter, the buffer still pays Raj his 70,000.
That is structural genius. He has completely decoupled his earning volatility from his spending stability. He can budget exactly like a corporate employee because he manufactured his own predictable paycheck.
And he bypassed the psychological trap of feeling rich one month and poor the next. But for any of these systems to survive long-term, you must rely on automation.
Why is automation so critical?
Because decision fatigue is a real biological limit. Every choice you make in a day burns cognitive fuel. If you have to manually log into your bank and physically transfer money to savings on the 15th of every month, eventually you will have a day where you are exhausted.
Right. Your boss yelled at you, your car broke down.
Exactly. And you will say, I'll just do it next month. Automation removes the human point of failure. The software executes the plan regardless of your emotional state.
You know, I was thinking about why people hate the word budget. People view a budget like a financial straitjacket. They think it exists to restrict them from enjoying life. But looking at Priya and Raj, I realized a budget is actually much more like a GPS system in your car.
A GPS. Explain that.
Well, a GPS doesn't dictate your destination. It doesn't tell you that you can't go to the beach or the amusement park. You still choose the destination. The GPS merely looks at the map and tells you the exact optimal route to get there without running out of gas or driving off a cliff.
Oh, I love the GPS analogy.
Right, if you want to spend heavily on travel, fine. The budget just shows you where you need to cut back on dining out to safely arrive at the travel destination.
A budget isn't deprivation. It's deliberate alignment with your actual values. But even with a map, our brains will still try to sabotage us because of that pesky loss aversion we talked about earlier.
Oh yeah, System 1 hates losing money.
Exactly. If you label a line item on your spreadsheet, debt repayment or emergency fund, your System 1 brain reads that as money being taken away from you. It feels like a penalty. A brilliant behavioral hack is to simply rename your accounts to trick your psychology.
Like giving them a positive spin.
Yeah. Don't call it an emergency fund. Call it the peace of mind fund. Don't call it savings. Call it the future Florence vacation fund or the walk away from my toxic boss fund. Suddenly, transferring money isn't a loss. It is an active purchase of future joy and autonomy.
We also need to talk about how to break bad spending habits when they pop up. The research applies Charles Duhigg's famous habit loop to our financial lives. The loop consists of 3 parts: the cue, the routine, and the reward.
Oh, this is so powerful. Let's look at Maya from our very first story.
Yes, Maya. So Maya realized she was bleeding cash on random online purchases. When she analyzed her habit loop, she discovered her cue as the feeling of stress and exhaustion right after logging off from work at 6 p.m.
Very common cue.
Her routine was to lie on the couch and scroll through fashion e-commerce apps. The reward was the tiny, fleeting dopamine spike of clicking "Buy Now" and anticipating a package.
The secret to breaking a habit isn't relying on willpower to stop the routine. It's impossible to just delete a habit loop. You have to hijack it.
Hijacked it.
Yeah, you can't eliminate the cue work is always going to be stressful, and your brain will always demand the reward, the dopamine hit of stress relief. But you can replace the routine.
Ah, so you swap out the middle part.
Exactly. Maya consciously decided that when the 6 p.m. stress hit, instead of picking up her phone, she would immediately put on her shoes, walk around the block, and then spend 10 minutes journaling.
Did it work?
It did. She still got the reward endorphins and stress relief, but she entirely bypassed the commercial transaction. By changing the routine, she cut her discretionary spending by 25% in 2 months. She changed the emotional response, which fixed the financial symptom.
But what happens when the habit loop wins? Because we're human. What happens when the budget breaks down, an emergency hits, and you start spending more money than your name ink is generating?
Well, you have to bridge that gap somehow.
And that brings us to the dark side of finance. You enter the realm of debt. This is where compound interest stops acting like the 8th wonder of the world, turns around and becomes a monster actively trying to devour you.
The metaphor used for debt in our sources is absolutely perfect. Debt is like fire.
Fire.
Yes. If you control it, contain it, and use it with deep respect, it cooks your meals, heats your home, and powers steam engines. It's incredibly useful. But if it escapes its containment, it will burn your house to the ground and destroy everything you love.
That is visceral.
We have to be nuanced and separate debt into 3 categories: good, neutral, and bad.
Let's define those clearly. Good debt is borrowing capital to acquire an asset that will either appreciate in value or significantly increase your future earning potential.
Give me an example.
A classic example is a mortgage on a modest home real estate generally appreciates, and you lock in your housing cost. Or a reasonable student loan for a high-return degree like engineering or nursing. You are using debt as leverage to increase your net worth.
Neutral debt is something like a standard auto loan. You aren't buying an appreciating asset. Cars drop in value the second you drive them off the lot, but the debt facilitates your ability to commute to work and generate income.
So it's a tool.
It's a necessary tool, provided the interest rate is low and the car is within your means.
And then there is bad debt. This is the uncontained fire. Bad debt is high-interest consumer debt used to purchase depreciating assets or fleeting experiences. It is using a credit card to buy designer clothes, expensive dinners, or a vacation you can't actually afford.
This is where the math gets genuinely horrifying.
Let's walk through the exact mechanics of a credit card minimum payment trap. Let's say you swipe your card for 50,000 rupees to buy a new television and some clothes. Your credit card has an annual percentage rate, or APR, of 24%.
Okay, 24% APR.
When the bill comes, the credit card company graciously tells you that you don't need to pay the full 50,000. You only need to make the minimum payment of 2,500 rupees, It feels so manageable.
It feels manageable because it is a mathematical illusion designed to keep you trapped. Let's do the math on that first month.
Walk me through it.
Your APR is 24% a year, which means you are charged 2% interest every single month. In month one, 2% of your 50,000 rupee balance is 1,000 rupees. So you send in your 2,500 rupee payment.
Thinking I'm paying down my TV.
Right. But the bank immediately takes 1,000 rupees purely as an interest fee. Only the remaining 1,500 rupees actually goes toward reducing your principal balance. You think you paid off a chunk, but your new balance is still 48,500.
And month 2, the cycle repeats.
Exactly. They charge you 2% on the 48,500. If you continue to only pay the minimum, it will take you over 2 years, 26 months to be exact, to pay off that 50,000 rupee shopping spree.
That's agonizingly slow.
And by the time you are done, you will have paid over 15,000 rupees purely in interest charges. You essentially paid 65,000 rupees for 50,000 rupees worth of stuff.
High-interest debt is a literal wealth transfer from the impatient to the disciplined. The credit card companies are using the time value of money against you.
They absolutely are.
So if you are trapped in this fire, how do you put it out? The research outlines 2 primary strategies, the debt avalanche and the debt snowball. They both work, but they target entirely different parts of the human brain.
Let's look at the debt avalanche first. This is the purely rational mathematical approach. System 2 loves the avalanche.
How does it work?
You list out all of your debts, credit cards, car loans, personal loans. You ignore the total balances, and you organize the list strictly by the interest rate from highest to lowest.
So prioritizing the most toxic debt.
Exactly. You pay the minimums on everything, but you take every single extra dollar of free cash flow and attack the debt with the highest interest rate. Once that's dead, you move to the next highest rate. Mathematically, this saves you the maximum amount of money in interest fees.
But as we've established today, humans are not calculators. We are emotional creatures. And the problem with the avalanche method is that if your highest interest debt also happens to be a massive $50,000 balance, you might be throwing extra money at it for 2 years before you see it disappear.
Right.
You get fatigued, you lose motivation, and quit.
Which is why the debt snowball is so incredibly effective, even though it is mathematically suboptimal. With the snowball method, you ignore the interest rates entirely. You list your debts from the smallest total balance to the largest total balance.
Give me an example.
Let's say you have a $500 medical bill, a $3,000 credit card, and a $10,000 car loan. You pay the minimums on everything, but you attack that $500 medical bill with blinding rage.
You just want it gone.
You might clear that small bill in a single month. And when you draw a red line through that debt, your brain releases a massive hit of dopamine. You feel a tangible sense of victory.
Oh, I see.
You take the money you were paying on the medical bill, roll it into your payment for the credit card, and the snowball gets bigger and faster. The psychological momentum is intoxicating. Look at the case study of Aditya from the text.
So let's hear Aditya's story.
Aditya was paralyzed by 4.5 lakh of debt, spread across 5 different cards and loans. He felt suffocated. He used the snowball method. He cleared his smallest store credit card in 6 weeks.
That's fast.
The psychological win shifted his identity from, I am drowning in debt, to I am an active debt destroyer. He picked up a side gig, cut his budget aggressively, and within 14 months, he cleared the entire 4.5 lakh. Motivation conquered math.
But looking at all of this destruction, I have a major point of pushback here.
Okay, let's have it.
If debt is this dangerous, if it's an uncontained fire, if credit card companies are mathematically engineering traps to keep us poor, shouldn't the ultimate advice be to just walk away? Shouldn't you listening right now just cut up all your credit cards, resolve to only ever pay in physical cash, and completely opt out of the credit system entirely? It seems like the only truly safe move.
It is a deeply tempting thought. The cash-only lifestyle feels incredibly safe and pure, especially if you have been burned by the fire of debt before. But in the modern financial ecosystem, completely opting out is actually a massive invisible trap.
Why is it a trap?
Because you are failing to distinguish between debt and credit. Debt is the money you owe. Credit is your reputation. Credit is trust quantified. It is the invisible bridge between your past financial behavior and your future opportunities. You do not want debt, but you desperately need credit.
Okay, unpack that. Why do I need credit if I have cash?
Because society uses your credit score as a proxy for your character and responsibility. Think about the 5 pillars of credit scoring.
What are the pillars?
35% of your score is purely payment history, do you honor your agreements on time? 30% is credit utilization of the credit extended to you. How much do you actually use? You want this under 30%.
Okay, so payment history and utilization are huge.
Yes. 15% is the length of your credit history. Have you been trustworthy for 1 year or 10 years? 10% is your credit mix. Can you handle different types of accounts? And the last 10% is new inquiries. Are you desperately seeking new loans?
So if I just cut up my cards.
If you cut up your old credit cards in a fit of rage, you immediately wipe out the length of your credit history. You also drastically reduce your total available credit, which means any small balance you do carry suddenly spikes your utilization ratio, your score plummets.
And the real-world consequences of that plummeting score are everywhere, not just at the bank. If you try to rent a nice apartment, the landlord checks your credit score to see if you are reliable. If your score is low, they reject you or demand a massive security deposit. In many places, auto insurance companies use your credit score to set your monthly premiums. They statistically correlate low credit scores with higher risk behavior. If you want to start a business, you need credit to secure a commercial lease. And if you ever want to buy a house, the hidden cost of bad credit is staggering.
The research highlights this with Ria's story. Ria and her friend go to the same bank on the same day to apply for the exact same car loan, 10 lakh rupees over a 5-year term.
Okay, exact same loan.
Ria has a completely average credit score of 650. Her friend has been meticulous and has an elite score of 820. Ria gets approved, but because she is deemed a higher risk, she is assigned an interest rate of 14%. Her friend is assigned a rate of 9%.
That's a 5% difference.
It is. Over the course of those 5 years, Ria will pay 1.66 lakh rupees more than her friend for the exact same vehicle. That 1.66 lakh is the literal cash penalty she pays for having a lower trust score.
So the goal isn't to avoid the system, it's to master the system. You keep 1 or 2 no-fee credit cards open. You put a small recurring subscription on them like your internet bill or a streaming service. You set the card to automatically pay the full statement balance out of your checking account every single month.
Perfect.
You never pay a single cent in interest, but every month the credit card company reports to the bureaus. Paid on time, paid on time. You use their system to build an indestructible fortress of trust.
Precisely. Which brings us to the ultimate question. Let's say the listener executes everything we've discussed today.
They do all the homework.
You conquer your psychology and rewrite your invisible scripts. You understand the macroeconomy, use the moving walkway analogy, and invest to beat inflation. You automate your budget, eliminate your toxic debt, and build a stellar credit score.
That's a lot of work.
It is. But what is the end game? Where is all this leading? Why are we doing all this work? This is the final piece of the puzzle. Building a life strategy and financial planning.
Because financial planning isn't just hoarding gold like a dragon. The defining distinction here is that financial planning is not a race to get rich. It is the process of getting organized so that money supports your life choices rather than dictating them.
Exactly.
It's about moving from vague emotional wishes to concrete execution. A wish is saying, I want to be rich one day. It means nothing. A financial plan uses SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Give me an example of a SMART goal.
A SMART goal is saying, I need 25 lakh rupees for my daughter's university education in exactly 15 years, and I will achieve it by investing 12,000 rupees a month in an index fund. That is a plan you can execute and track.
And the architecture of that plan starts with the risk management pyramid. Imagine building a house. You would never start by installing chandeliers and buying expensive furniture before you have poured a solid concrete foundation and built a waterproof roof.
No, the house would collapse.
In finance, the base of your pyramid is the emergency fund. This is 3 to 6 months of vital living expenses sitting in a highly liquid, accessible savings account. It earns very little interest, and that is fine.
Wait, I thought we wanted to invest everything to beat inflation.
But its job is not to make you wealthy. Its job is to act as a shock absorber so that a medical emergency or a job loss doesn't force you into high-interest credit card debt.
Got it. Once the foundation is poured, you build the walls and the roof with pure protection insurance, term life insurance, comprehensive health insurance, and disability insurance. And there is a critical rule here that trips up so many people. Never, ever mix insurance with investment.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Never mix insurance with investment. The financial industry loves to sell whole life or endowment policies that promise to insure your life and grow your money at the same time. They are almost universally terrible products with massive hidden fees and low returns. Buy pure term life insurance to protect your family's income and invest the difference directly in the market where you control the returns.
Only when the foundation of emergency cash and the roof of insurance are secure do you move up to the top of the pyramid, investing in wealth accumulation. The core strategy here is asset allocation. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You balance your portfolio between high-growth, higher-risk assets like stocks and lower-growth, stable assets like bonds.
The classic shortcut for this is the rule of 100. It's a way to calculate your risk tolerance based on time. You take the number 100 and you subtract your current age. The resulting number is roughly the percentage of your portfolio that should be invested in high-growth equities.
Let's run the math on that.
If you are 30 years old, 100 minus 30 is 70. So 70% of your money goes into the stock market. What? So aggressive? Because at age 30, your time horizon is massive. If the stock market crashes tomorrow and loses half its value, it doesn't matter to you. You aren't touching that money for 30 years. You have time to wait for the recovery.
But what if you're older?
If you are 65 years old, 100 minus 65 is 35. You only keep 35% in stocks and move the rest to safe bonds, because if the market crashes the year you want to retire, you don't have a decade to wait for it to bounce back.
And that concept of retirement is the ultimate paradigm shift in this entire deep dive. Society teaches us that retirement is an age. You work until you are 65, a bell rings, you get a gold watch, and you stop working. But mathematically, retirement is not an age.
It's not.
No. Retirement is a number. It is the specific crossover point where the passive income generated by your investments exceeds your living expenses.
That crossover point is governed by the 4% rule. This rule, derived from massive historical market studies, states that you can safely withdraw 4% of your total invested portfolio every single year, adjusting for inflation, and statistically you will never run out of money before you die. The market growth outpaces your withdrawals. This simple rule allows you to calculate your financial independence number.
Let's do the math on that. You look at your budget, and you determine you need 50,000 rupees a month to live a comfortable life. That is 6 lakh rupees a year. To find your FI number, you divide your annual expense of 6 lakh by 0.04.
Which is 4%.
Right. The answer is 1.5 crore. The exact day your investment accounts cross a balance of 1.5 crore rupees, you are financially independent. Your money is now working harder than you are. You can quit your job, you can start a charity, you can paint. Whether you hit that number at age 65 or age 35, the math remains the same.
We see this beautifully illustrated with Meera and Arjun in the text. They are a couple who felt completely overwhelmed by money anxiety. They sat down, defined their FI number, and built a boring, methodical 10-year roadmap. They automated their investments into broad index funds, built their emergency buffer, and put their heads down.
And what happened?
Within 5 years, they hadn't hit their ultimate goal yet, but their anxiety completely vanished.
Yeah.
They had immense peace of mind because they knew exactly where the ship was heading. But I have to pose a question about the modern reality of this.
Go for it.
The data talks heavily about the behavioral discipline required to stick to a boring 10-year plan. But we live in an era where you open Twitter or TikTok and some 22-year-old claims they just made millions overnight trading crypto or meme stocks. How do you actually maintain the discipline to stick to a slow, methodical index fund strategy when the entire world is screaming at you to gamble?
That is arguably the hardest part of modern finance. And if we pull all the threads of this conversation together, the answer is anchored in the concept of deep intentionality. The best financial plan is not the one with the absolute highest theoretical mathematical return.
What is it then?
The best financial plan is the one you can actually stick to without losing your mind during a bear market or succumbing to FOMO during a bubble. When Meera and Arjun saw people getting rich quick online, they didn't panic and change their strategy. Why? Because their goal wasn't to have more money than the people on social media. Their goal was to buy their own time back.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
When you deeply define your SMART goals, the noise of social media fades. You realize those people are playing an entirely different game with different risk profiles than you are. A financial plan that is ignored becomes instantly obsolete, but a plan that is reviewed, automated, and tied deeply to your personal values becomes an unstoppable force.
Wow. We have covered an immense landscape today. We started microscopic looking inside the emotional wiring of System 1 and System 2, examining those invisible scripts we picked up at the childhood dinner table.
We really went deep.
Then we zoomed all the way out to the macroscopic understanding how the global forces of GDP, inflation, and employment act like weather systems on our personal wealth. And finally, we brought it back to the daily actionable mechanics. Zero-based budgets, the debt snowball, the 4% rule. These are the levers and dials that put you firmly in the CEO's chair of Your Name, Inc.
It is a complete interconnected ecosystem, and I want to leave everyone with a final, slightly provocative thought to chew on.
Lay it on us.
It leaps back to our very first premise. Money does not change who you are. It simply amplifies who you already are. Think about your own life right now. Imagine if a complete stranger found your bank statement or your credit card bill from the last 30 days.
Okay, scary thought.
They don't know your name, they don't know your intentions, they don't know your invisible scripts, they only see the data of where your money went. What values would they assume you hold dear? Would they see a statement that amplifies anxiety, impulse, and a desire for status? Or would they see a statement that amplifies intention, generosity, and future security?
That is a deeply confronting question. It strips away all our excuses. The reality of our priorities is written right there in black and white math. Here's our challenge to you. Don't try to fix everything we talked about today all at once. You will just trigger System 1 panic.
Take it slow.
Just pick one small action based on this deep dive. Maybe you log into your banking app right now and simply rename a savings account to the Freedom Fund. Maybe you finally list out your 5 debts on a piece of paper so you can look the monster in the eye and start a snowball. Or maybe you just sit down and write out your first SMART goal. Just take one single step to bring System 2 online and take the wheel. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Keep learning, keep planning, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.